Today, we uncover the shocking truth about the superfoods available right here, right now, in UK supermarkets. We know exactly how you feel about all this. You're not trying to become a fitness model, and you're not trying to live off lettuce leaves either. You just want to eat well, actually enjoy your food, and not need a chemistry degree to work out what's really going into your body. You're fed up of the absolute pitiful state of the modern food industry and how little they care about the public's health, whether that's the elderly or the children. You're fed up of walking into Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda or Lidl and feeling like you need a translator just to read a label. And here's the bit that really gets us. None of this is genuinely complicated. They overcomplicate the food on purpose. Good, simple, nourishing food has existed for as long as people have been cooking it, long before any of it needed a leaf printed on the front or a made-up word ending in berry to justify the price. Somewhere between then and now, ordinary food got quietly pushed to the bottom shelf, while something considerably more expensive and often considerably less useful took its place at eye level, right where you'd naturally reach first. So we've gone through the shelves of every major UK supermarket, spoken to the people who actually study this stuff for a living, and pulled together the 30 healthiest foods you can buy today without needing to remortgage your house or give up enjoying your meals. Some of these will surprise you. A few of them have been sitting in your cupboard this whole time without you ever realizing what they were actually capable of. And by the end of this video, you won't look at your weekly shop the same way again. Before we get into it, I need to ask you for something. If you believe people deserve to know what they're actually eating, without the industry spin and the clever wording dressing it up, then hit that hype button right now. I don't say that lightly. Every single time you do, you're telling YouTube that this kind of information matters, that people genuinely want it, and that channels like this one deserve to be put in front of more people who are just as fed up as you are. It's a small click, it costs you nothing, and it honestly helps push back against a food industry that would rather you didn't ask too many questions. So go on, do it now before you forget. Consider it your way of standing up for your own plate, and for everyone else's. And let's get into it. Number 30, European brand kefir. Now before you switch off thinking this is another one of those trendy yogurt pots, hear us out, because most of what gets sold as kefir in this country barely deserves the name, and there's a proper trick to spotting the versions actually worth your money. Real kefir is made using actual kefir grains, a living culture with a whole community of different bacteria and yeasts working together, and it's meant to be properly fizzy and properly sharp. A lot of what's on the supermarket shelf has simply had a couple of cultures added back in during processing, which isn't the same thing at all, and it's usually sweetened up to hide how thin it tastes. If you can track down a Polish or wider European brand, either in a UK supermarket or at a European grocer, you're already onto something closer to the real thing. But honestly, the best version of this is the one you make yourself, and it's far easier than people assume. You buy a spoonful of live kefir grains, which you can pick up online for next to nothing, drop them into an ordinary jar of milk, cover it loosely so it can breathe, and leave it out at room temperature for a day or two until it's thickened and properly tangy. Strain it through a plastic or nylon sieve, never metal, keep the liquid in the fridge, and pop the grains straight back into fresh milk to start again. Once you've got a jar going, it basically looks after itself, and it costs you next to nothing compared with what you'd pay for the same amount in flimsy little supermarket tubs. It's also worth knowing that real, live kefir should behave like a living thing sitting in your fridge, gently fizzing, occasionally pushing against the lid a little. If a tub sits dead flat and silent for weeks without any of that, it's telling you something about how alive it actually still is. Number 29, pomegranate. The last time we put a food this exact shade of deep red front and center on this channel, it turned into one of our favorite discoveries ever. And pomegranate deserves the same respect. Underneath that tough, almost forgettable-looking skin is a fruit packed with plant compounds that have been studied for their effect on the heart and on inflammation in the body. The trick is not letting the marketing get ahead of the fruit itself. A glass of pomegranate juice can carry a surprising amount of sugar with barely any of the fiber you'd get from eating the seeds whole, so if you're buying it, go for the actual seeds, sold ready prepared in most supermarkets now, rather than reaching straight for the bottle. It isn't the cheapest thing on this list, and we won't pretend otherwise, but a small tub goes further than you'd think, scattered over yogurt or a salad. Whole fruit will keep in the fruit bowl for weeks without any trouble at all, so there's no rush to use the whole thing the moment you get it home, unlike most of the fruit sitting next to it. Number 28. Beans and pulses, the whole family of them. Chickpeas, lentils, butter beans, cannellini beans, the lot. This is where being tight with money and being healthy actually line up perfectly, because a tin of any of these costs next to nothing and gives you fiber and plant protein that most people in this country simply aren't getting enough of. And here's the bit that trips people up. Protein doesn't have to mean chicken breast every single night. A tin of chickpeas blended down with a bit of garlic and lemon becomes hummus in minutes. Red lentils will thicken out a curry or a bolognese, while quietly stretching your mince further. Butter beans dropped into a tomato and herb stew with a splash of stock make a genuinely filling dinner on their own. No meat required at all. Keep a few different tins in the cupboard, rinse them before you use them to cut down on the added salt, and you've got the base of half a week's meals sorted for less than the price of one ready meal. If you've got a bit more time on your hands, dried versions cost even less again. They just need soaking overnight before you cook them, and once you've done it once, you'll wonder why you ever paid extra for the tin at all. And it doesn't have to be a curry every time either. A tin of cannellini beans blitzed with stock and a bit of herb makes a genuinely warming soup on a cold night. No meat anywhere near it, and nobody at the table will feel like they've missed out on anything. Number 27. Coconut oil. This one earns its place for more than just cooking, and we'd be doing you a disservice if we only talked about the frying pan. Yes, it holds up well at higher cooking temperatures, though it's worth using it sparingly given how much saturated fat it carries compared with something like olive oil. But plenty of people also swap it in as a simple natural moisturizer, and swill a spoonful around the mouth for a minute or two as part of their teeth and gum routine, a traditional practice that's picked up a real following, even if the hard scientific proof behind it is still fairly thin. Whether you're using it on your skin, on your teeth, or in the pan, look for one labelled virgin or cold-pressed, since the more refined versions have had most of that natural character stripped straight out of them, along with the smell and taste that made it worth reaching for in the first place. Number 26. Avocado. We know, you've been asking us to put this one on a list for years, and here it finally is. It's a genuinely good source of the unsaturated fat your body actually needs, along with a decent hit of fiber, and it fills you up in a way that a lot of fruit simply doesn't. What we won't do is pretend it's some untouchable miracle food, because a food can be perfectly healthy without being brilliant value for every single household, and avocados are one of the more expensive things on this list, especially when they're imported out of season. Give it a gentle squeeze near the stalk before you buy it, and if it yields slightly without feeling mushy, you've found a good one. And if it's rock hard on the day you need it, a paper bag on the side for a day or two does the job of ripening it up without any fuss at all. Number 25. Chia seeds. Here's a shopping tip that could genuinely save you an uncomfortable evening. Chia seeds swell up enormously when they meet liquid, so eating them completely dry, straight from the packet, can leave you feeling distinctly bloated. Soak them first, in milk, in juice, even blitzed into a milkshake, and give them at least 10 or 15 minutes. Longer in the fridge is even better. Once they've swollen up, they take on a texture that's honestly not far off the tapioca pearls you get in bubble tea, which makes them a genuinely fun way to get a good dose of fiber and plant-based omega-3 into a drink you'd be having anyway. Stirred through a glass of milk overnight in the fridge, you've basically made yourself a proper little pudding by breakfast time, without adding a single spoonful of sugar to get there. Number 24. Watercress. You'll sometimes see this one wrongly credited with vitamin K2, and we want to set the record straight rather than repeat a mistake. Watercress is a genuinely strong source of vitamin K1, along with vitamin C and folate, And that's more than enough reason to give it a place here without needing to borrow a claim that doesn't belong to it. It's grown right here in Britain. It's peppery enough to actually taste like something, and it costs next to nothing dropped into a sandwich, stirred through soup, or tossed through a salad in place of the usual bag of mixed leaves. It wilts fast once it's home, so buy it close to when you'll actually use it rather than letting it sit in the fridge drawer going soft and forgotten. It used to be a proper British staple long before kale ever turned up on these shores, sold from carts and market stalls generations ago, and there's something quite satisfying about giving it its place back. Number 23. Rye bread. For a huge number of families across Eastern Europe and the Baltic states, this has simply been what bread looks like for generations, and it's only in Britain that it's somehow got repackaged as some kind of premium health discovery. Dense, dark, and properly filling, rye bread carries considerably more fibre than a standard sliced white loaf, and it keeps you satisfied for longer without the same rush and crash. Check that whole grain rye flour is genuinely the main ingredient rather than just a splash of it added for colour, and treat it the same way you would any other whole grain, as a steady, everyday staple rather than an occasional treat. A couple of slices topped with cottage cheese or a tin sardine make a proper lunch on their own. No side dish required. Number 22. Broccoli sprouts. Not to be confused with cress, and definitely not to be confused with Brussels sprouts, which is a mix-up that's caught more than one supermarket channel out before now. These are the tiny young shoots grown from broccoli seeds harvested within days rather than weeks, and they carry a concentrated dose of the same plant compounds found in mature broccoli in a fraction of the volume. You'll usually find them sitting near the salad leaves and fresh herbs rather than with the actual broccoli, and they're genuinely simple to grow yourself on a windowsill for pennies if you fancy it. Scatter them over eggs, soup, or a sandwich for a proper peppery kick, and don't be surprised if half the room has never even heard of them, because they're one of the more genuinely overlooked things on this entire list. Number 21. Sardines and mackerel. There's a lot of noise out there about wild-caught salmon, and plenty of people have told us they can barely find the real thing in their local supermarket anymore, let alone trust the label when they do. Sardines and mackerel solve that problem outright, because tinned versions of both are almost always genuinely wild-caught. They're considerably cheaper, and you're getting the soft edible bones along for calcium, as well as a proper hit of long-chain omega-3 fats. Don't get talked into paying triple for a fancier-looking tin when a plain one packed in oil or tomato sauce is doing exactly the same nutritional job. Check the label for added sugar in the sauce versions, and you're set. Kept in the cupboard rather than the fridge, a few tins sitting there give you a proper meal on the nights when cooking from scratch just isn't happening. Grilled fresh mackerel fillets are lovely too when you can get them, but there's genuinely no shame in the tin, and for most households it's the far more sensible choice week to week. Number 20. Sauerkraut. If kefir felt like too much of a commitment, this is the gentler way into fermented food, and it genuinely could not be simpler to make at home. Shred a cabbage, weigh it, add roughly 2% of that weight in salt, massage it until it starts releasing its own liquid, pack it down tightly into a jar so it's fully submerged, and leave it somewhere cool for a week or two, tasting as you go. One thing worth knowing before you buy a jar instead: a lot of the sauerkraut sold in supermarkets has been pasteurized for a longer shelf life, which is a polite way of saying the heat has killed off the very live cultures you were probably buying it for in the first place. Check the label for live or unpasteurized if that's what you're actually after, and keep it in the fridge once it's opened rather than the cupboard, since that's exactly what's keeping those live cultures ticking over. Number 19. Onions and garlic. Two of the cheapest things in the entire supermarket, and two of the most taken for granted. Worth knowing before you fill your basket, an awful lot of the garlic on UK shelves now travels a long way to get here, so where you can, look for British or French-grown bulbs instead, which tend to be firmer and considerably more flavourful anyway. Beyond that, there's not much mystery to either of these. They're the flavour base of practically every proper meal you'll ever cook. They cost pennies, and they'll outlast almost anything else in your cupboard. Buy them loose rather than pre-packed where you can, since you'll actually get to check they're firm all the way through before they end up in your basket. Number 18. Extra virgin olive oil. This is one where the label is doing an enormous amount of heavy lifting, and it's worth knowing what to actually look for. A dark glass bottle protects the oil from light damage. A harvest date tells you it hasn't been sitting around losing quality for years, and a single country or region of origin is a far better sign than a vague blend pulled together from wherever happened to be cheapest that season. That doesn't mean a blend is automatically bad. Plenty of them are perfectly genuine. It just means you can't judge quality from the front of the bottle alone, and it's worth turning it round and actually reading what's there. Use it properly rather than pouring it over an already indulgent plate, drizzled raw over salad, or swapped in for butter in cooking, and you're getting the genuine benefit of it rather than just extra calories on top of everything else. Store it away from direct sunlight and heat too, ideally somewhere like a cupboard rather than a shelf right beside the cooker, since both light and warmth will quietly break it down faster than you'd expect. Number 17. Mushrooms. Keep an eye out for the ones specifically labelled as grown under ultraviolet light, because those genuinely do carry a meaningful amount of vitamin D. Unlike an ordinary punnet sitting next to them on the shelf that hasn't had the same treatment, whatever the picture on the front might quietly imply. Beyond that little label trick, mushrooms are one of the easiest ways to bulk out a meal and cut down your meat bill at the same time, chopped finely and stirred straight into mince for a bolognese or a shepherd's pie, where they practically disappear while doing all the work and quietly stretching the meat you did buy a good bit further. They're also one of the lowest calorie things you can genuinely fill a plate with, so there's real value in simply buying more of them than you think you need. Number 16. Black currants and blackberries. Blueberries get all the attention, and most of what lands on our shelves has travelled here from thousands of miles away to earn it. Meanwhile, Britain's own hedgerows have been quietly producing blackcurrants and blackberries loaded with vitamin C and colour of their own for centuries at a fraction of the cost. Usually sold frozen and every bit as good for you as anything fresh. Stirred through porridge, yogurt, or a warmed through compote, there's genuinely no reason to keep reaching past them for the imported option, especially once you realise the frozen bag usually costs a fraction of the little fresh punnet sitting a few feet away. Number 15. Prunes. Not the most glamorous entry on this list, and we're not going to pretend otherwise, but this is one of the most useful foods here for anyone our age specifically. The fibre and natural sorbitol in prunes make a real gentle difference to keeping things moving comfortably, which matters more the older you get, whatever nobody wants to say out loud about it. They keep for months in the cupboard, they're cheap, and if you're not used to them, ease in gradually rather than eating a whole bag in one go, or you'll certainly notice it by the end of the day. Number 14. Walnuts and almonds. A proper crowd pleaser, and rightly so. A small handful of the unsalted versions gives you unsaturated fat, a bit of plant protein, and enough fibre to actually keep hunger away, which makes them a genuinely solid swap for the biscuit tin come mid-afternoon. Just don't treat healthy as a license to eat the whole bag in one sitting, because they're fairly calorie-dense for their size, and a small handful genuinely does the job just as well as a heaped bowl. Number 13. Natural peanut butter. The label test here matters more than the brand ever will. Turn the jar around, and peanuts should be the only thing, or close to the only thing listed. No palm oil sitting near the top of the ingredients, no added sugar doing the job that peanuts should already be doing on their own. You'll find versions like this at every major supermarket for a similar price to the sugary alternatives, so there's genuinely no excuse to keep buying the version that's basically peanut-flavoured dessert spread. Give it a stir before your first use too, since the natural oil separating out and sitting on top is exactly the sign you want, not a fault. Number 12. Eggs. Simple, cheap, and one of the most complete sources of protein you'll find anywhere in the shop, alongside a decent dose of vitamin B12 that a lot of people don't realise they're running low on. They work at breakfast, they work thrown into a quick evening meal, and they're forgiving enough that almost nobody actually struggles to eat them regularly. Go free range where your budget allows it, and don't let a beautifully cooked egg get ruined by whatever greasy plate you're serving it alongside, because the egg was never really the problem in the first place. Number 11. Plain yogurt. Quick bit of housekeeping first, because there's genuine confusion about this. Greek yogurt legally has to actually be made in Greece to be sold under that name here, thanks to a UK court ruling a few years back. And anything made elsewhere using the same straining method gets sold as Greek style instead. That doesn't make Greek style inferior, it's simply a labeling rule rather than a quality signal. What actually matters far more is whether the tub says live cultures on the label, because that's your real indicator of genuine bacterial content rather than just a thick texture. And honestly, once you know the trick, making your own is almost embarrassingly easy. Warm some milk until it's steaming but not boiling. Let it cool down until you can comfortably hold a finger in it. Stir in a couple of spoonfuls of a live yogurt as your starter, then leave it somewhere warm and undisturbed for 6 to 8 hours. An airing cupboard or an oven with just the light left on both work fine, before popping it in the fridge. One good tub of starter and you never really need to buy it again, since every batch you make becomes the starter for the next one. It's genuinely one of the easiest wins on this entire list, and it costs a fraction of what you'd pay for the equivalent in thick protein-heavy pots at the till. Number 10. Cabbage and spring greens. This might be the vegetable Britain stopped respecting somewhere along the way, remembered mainly for being boiled to a grey watery mess at school dinners decades ago. Given a shorter cooking time, a quick steam or a fast stir-fry rather than half an hour in a pan of water, it holds its texture, its colour, and a genuinely useful dose of fibre and vitamin C for one of the lowest prices in the entire vegetable aisle. And one head genuinely stretches across several meals rather than wilting away in the fridge unused. It deserves a lot better than the reputation it's stuck with, honestly. Number 9. Cottage cheese. Overlooked next to the bigger yogurt pots, but it's a genuinely easy way to get a solid hit of protein without needing to cook anything at all. Spread on toast, spooned onto a baked potato, or stirred through some tomatoes with a bit of black pepper, and you've got a proper light meal in under a minute. Salt content varies a fair bit between brands, so it's worth comparing labels rather than assuming they're all much the same, and a tub keeps happily in the fridge for a good while once it's opened. Number 8. Tofu. We'll be honest, this is probably the toughest sell on this whole list for a lot of you, and that's exactly why we've saved it for near the end rather than the start. But it's not just a food for vegans, whatever the assumption might be. It's low in saturated fat, it takes on whatever flavour you cook it in, and depending on how it's set, it can carry a genuinely useful amount of calcium too. Pressed, cubed, and fried until the outside's properly firm, it does a perfectly convincing job of replacing meat in a stir-fry at a fraction of the price, and it's genuinely worth one honest attempt before deciding it isn't for you. Number 7. Barley. Oats get all the glory when it comes to cholesterol-friendly grains, but barley carries the exact same beta-glucan fibre that's been shown to help there, and it's one of the more underused ingredients in a British kitchen. Thrown into a soup, a stew, or a casserole, it thickens everything up naturally and adds real substance for very little cost, and a single bag lasts an awfully long time in the cupboard. Number 6. Red peppers. Cheap, colourful, and genuinely versatile, whether you're eating them raw in a salad roasted until they're soft and sweet, or thrown into a stir-fry at the last minute. They bring a proper hit of vitamin C along with them, and they're an easy way to stop every vegetable on your plate looking the same shade of green, which honestly makes a meal feel more appealing before you've even taken a bite. Number 5. Broccoli. It earns its reputation, though not through anything miraculous, just steady fibre, folate and vitamin C done properly. The one mistake that undoes all of that is boiling it until it's grey and falling apart. So a quick steam or a few minutes in a hot pan keeps both the texture and the nutrients where they should be, rather than swimming out into the saucepan water and straight down the sink. Number 4. Carrots. one of the best value vegetables in the entire supermarket and a genuine source of the beta-carotene your body converts into vitamin A, which supports normal eyesight. That's the honest version of the claim, by the way, not the childhood story about seeing in the dark, which carrots have never actually managed to deliver on, however many times your gran told you otherwise. Number 3. Apples. About as portable and fuss-free as healthy food gets. No preparation, a decent hit of fiber including the skin, and a portion size that's basically built in for you already, small enough for a bag to actually last the week, rather than going soft before you've worked through them. Genuinely hard to overthink this one. Number 2. Milk or a fortified unsweetened soya drink if that suits you better. Plain, unglamorous, and exactly the kind of everyday food that gets overlooked once something shinier turns up on the shelf next to it. Cow's milk naturally provides protein, calcium, and vitamin B12, while a soya alternative can match a fair amount of that, provided it's actually fortified, which not every carton on the shelf is. So it's worth checking the label rather than assuming one plant-based carton is automatically the same as the next. Number 1. Porridge oats. The single most reliable food on this entire list, and there's a reason it's closing things out rather than opening them. Plain oats contain a soluble fiber called beta-glucan, which has a genuine, well-documented effect on cholesterol, and a bowl first thing in the morning keeps you full for hours for barely any money at all. Just watch the sweetened instant sachets sitting right next to the plain bag, dressed up to look identical, but carrying a completely different amount of sugar. Plain oats, your own fruit on top, and you've got the cheapest, most dependable breakfast on this entire list, sorted for pennies rather than pounds, and genuinely no worse off for it. So there you have it, 30 of the healthiest foods you can actually walk into any UK supermarket and buy today without needing a health food shop, a wellness subscription, or a second mortgage. If you've made it this far, you already care more about what goes into your body than most people ever bother to, and that's genuinely worth something. Whatever the supermarkets themselves seem to think of the effort you put in. Hit that hype button if any of this genuinely surprised you. It makes a real difference to who else gets to see it. Drop a comment and tell us which of these 30 you're already eating and which one you're adding to the shopping list this week, because we genuinely want to know what you think. And subscribe if you haven't already, because there's plenty more of these coming. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and protect your plate.